It's the kind of practice session that becomes a camp legend before it's even over. One of those days where you could feel the shift in the air before the final whistle blew. Shedeur Sanders, the so-called project quarterback, the fifth-round pick who was supposed to wait his turn, didn't just win the day. He owned it. 14 passes attempted, 14 completed. No gimmicks, no check-down padding, no hiding behind conservative play calling. Just clinical, efficient, high-level quarterbacking against the Cleveland Browns' first-team defense. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. Yes, that defense. The one anchored by Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward. The one that's built to humiliate unprepared quarterbacks. Instead, it was the defense that got the lesson. From the first snap, there was a different energy around Sanders. His huddle wasn't just orderly, it was alive. Teammates leaned in when he spoke, eyes locked, nodding with quiet intensity. And once the ball was snapped, the execution was surgical. A quick out to the left sideline, play so precisely the corner couldn't even contest it. A slant through tight coverage where only his receiver's hands could reach. A deep-seam ball dropped into the bucket over a linebacker's shoulder. Every throw had purpose. Every read was deliberate, and every completion chipped away at the illusion that this was still an open quarterback competition. Meanwhile, Dillon Gabriel, who had spent most of camp being framed as a safer, more system-ready option, was imploding in real time. 3 completions out of 12 attempts. Overthrows that sailed into the grass. Checkdowns that were late and hesitant. His mechanics looked off, his confidence visibly drained with each missed throw. By the time his last series ended, he was standing on the sideline, helmet in hand, jaw tight, watching Sanders dismantle the same defense that had just exposed him. This wasn't just about the numbers, though it was about body language. Sanders moved like a starting quarterback, command in the pocket, quick resets when pressure came, eyes always scanning. Even when a defensive end crashed and untouched, Sanders slid up, delivered the throw, and jogged back to the huddle without so much as a glance at the pass rusher. That calm composure sent a message, not just to the coaches, but to the guys blocking for him. I've got this. You've got me. By the time practice wrapped, you didn't need the official announcement to know what had just happened. The players knew. The coaches knew. Even the beat reporters on the sidelines were already trading nods, scribbling the same headline in their notepads. Sanders just took the job. That night, Kevin Stefanski called the players only huddle before team meetings. His voice was steady but decisive. He didn't drag it out with long speeches or half measures. Shedeur is our starter, he told them. No caveats. No for now. No barring injury. Just a fact. The room responded instantly. Claps, cheers, a few shouts from the defensive guys who've been quietly rooting for him since camp began. The unspoken tension of the past few weeks, the feeling that the best quarterback wasn't the one getting the reps, was finally gone. It's hard to overstate what a moment like this does to a locker room. Football players, more than anyone, can smell indecision. They know when a staff is hedging. They know when politics are at play. That uncertainty eats away at trust. But the second the team feels like the best player is on the field, something changes. There's clarity. There's direction. And for the Browns, a franchise not exactly known for either of those things. That's huge. This also wasn't just a feel-good camp story. It was a tectonic shift in the franchise's trajectory. Sanders was never supposed to be here this soon. Drafted in the 5th round. He came in as a developmental pick, a guy with upside, but no immediate path to QB1. Joe Flacco's experience, Kenny Pickett's starting pedigree, and Dillon Gabriel's perceived readiness were all supposed to keep him buried. But as the weeks rolled by, the old pecking order stopped making sense. Flacco's arm was fading, Pickett couldn't stay healthy, and Gabriel, well, day 12 told the whole story. The part that really stings for Gabriel is how public this contrast was. Camp battles happen in all kinds of ways. Sometimes it's slow, subtle shifts in performance that only the coaching staff tracks. Not this time. This was alive, in front of everyone, dismantling. Every player on the field saw it. Every coach saw it. The defensive starters saw the difference in how they had to defend each quarterback. And when that kind of side-by-side comparison plays out in real time, it's impossible to put the genie back in the bottle. For Sanders, this is validation, not just of his talent, but of how he's handled himself since day one. He didn't demand reps in front of cameras. He didn't leak frustrations through anonymous sources. He kept his head down, maximized every rep he did get, and built trust in the locker room brick by brick. By the time his opportunity came, the foundation was already there. And now, he gets to step into the starting role with a team that's ready to follow him. The upcoming preseason matchup against the Carolina Panthers isn't just a warm-up game anymore. It's the first chapter of the Sanders era in Cleveland. And make no mistake, the stakes are massive. This isn't about surviving a half of football. This is about proving that what happened on day 12 wasn't just camp magic. It's who he is. The Panthers will throw complex looks at him, test his reads, and try to rattle him early. If Sanders responds the way he did against Garrett and Ward in practice, the Browns' offense could start to look very different very fast. Already, whispers are circulating about how Stefanski might tweak the playbook to fit Sanders' strengths. More movement, quicker reads, designed rollouts, RPOs that keep defenses honest. For years, the Browns' offense has felt static, almost mechanical. Sanders brings fluidity. He brings unpredictability. And in a division where defenses are built to punish quarterbacks who hesitate, that's not just a nice bonus. It's survival. But beyond the X's and O's, this is about optics. The Browns just named a fifth-round rookie their starting quarterback because he flat-out outperformed the competition. That's the kind of move that makes headlines, changes narratives, and forces the rest of the league to take notice. It's also the kind of decision that can unite a team because nothing galvanizes a roster like knowing the best guy won the job, fair and square. For Gabriel, the road forward is murkier. His performance on day 12 will hang over him until he gets another chance. And in the NFL, those chances can be scarce once the perception sets in. Trade rumors are already swirling, and it's not hard to imagine another QB-needy team kicking the tires. But in Cleveland, the shift has already happened. The Browns finally have their QB1. And after everything, the draft day skepticism, the depth chart politics, the cautious developmental label, Shedeur Sanders now gets to do what he's been waiting for all along. Play football his way, with the ball in his hands and the game in front of him. It's not the ending anyone in the front office planned, but it might just be the beginning this franchise has been waiting for. What happened on that practice field didn't just change the quarterback depth chart. It rewired the entire psychology of the Browns season before it even started. You could feel it in the locker room afterward. Guys who had been giving the standard media-trained answers for weeks were suddenly smiling in interviews, making little side comments about how it feels good when the right things happen. Offensive linemen, the ones who've had to pass protect for every flavor of quarterback chaos Cleveland has produced over the years, were suddenly talking about how easy it is to block for someone who gets the ball out on time and reads the field fast. That's the thing no stat sheet ever fully captures. What a quarterback does to the belief of the men around him. When the huddle is steady, when the cadence is crisp, when the eyes are calm under pressure, everyone plays faster. Sanders had that effect in camp. Even in the little moments, like when a receiver missed a route adjustment and Sanders walked over, patted him on the helmet, and explained the read without a hint of frustration, you could see why veterans were gravitating toward him. It's the kind of small human leadership that doesn't show up on highlight reels but changes the entire tone of a team. Contrast that with what's been happening on the other side of the QB battle. Gabriel came into camp with momentum from the coaching staff's early backing, but as soon as the reps started tightening and the competition became more real, you could see the gears grinding in his head. Passes were late. Feet weren't in sync with his eyes. He'd hold the ball a beat too long, then try to make up for it with a rush throw. And the defense? They smelled blood. A few veterans even admitted quietly that they started disguising looks more aggressively when Gabriel was under center, because they knew it would bait him into hesitation. That's not malice, that's competition. But it's telling. When Sanders stepped in and started shredding those same looks with quick reads and precise ball placement, the defense's whole approach had to shift. Suddenly, they were the ones reacting, not dictating. The Browns haven't had a quarterback who could flip that dynamic in a long time. That's why Day 12 felt less like one good practice and more like the unveiling of a player who could legitimately change the team's identity. And it's not just the players buying in now. The coaching staff's demeanor has shifted too. In the weeks leading up to this, Stefanski's press conferences had that cautious, deflective tone coaches use when they're keeping the door open for multiple scenarios. Lots will evaluate, and it's an ongoing process. After naming Sanders a starter, the language changed. It wasn't about evaluation anymore. It was about preparation. We're getting him ready to play, Stefanski said. And while he didn't go into game plan specifics, you could tell the Browns were already building an offense around Sanders' strengths. That's the part that makes this next stretch so fascinating. The Browns have been running an offense designed for quarterbacks who either stay static in the pocket or need the whole route concept to develop before they let it rip. Sanders is different. His processing is quick enough to work through progressions at tempo, and he's mobile enough to punish defenses that overcommit. That means Cleveland can finally use more layered RPOs, rollout designs, and misdirection, the kind of modern, stress-inducing offense fans have been begging for. And here's the irony. If not for a combination of injuries and Gabriel's collapse, we might not be here yet. The original plan, according to multiple whispers from inside the building, was to keep Sanders behind the veterans for at least half the season, no matter how he looked in camp. It's a classic NFL move. Err on the side of experience. Avoid throwing a rookie into the fire. And buy time for front office to say, see, we had a process. But football has a way of tearing up plans. When your developmental guy is clearly outperforming the others and the locker room starts leaning his way, the risk shifts. Suddenly the danger isn't starting him too soon. It's losing the trust of your team by not starting him. That's why the meeting where Stefanski told the team Sanders was QB1 was so important. It wasn't just a personnel decision. It was a public declaration inside those walls that the Browns are going to ride with a player who earned it. That's a trust builder. And in an NFL season where margins are razor thin, trust inside the building can be the difference between surviving the late season grind and collapsing under pressure. Of course, with trust comes expectation, and Sanders is about to get a crash course in that. The Panthers game might technically be just preseason, but that label won't mean much once the ball is kicked. Defensive coordinators don't want to be embarrassed, even in August. Carolina's starters will take it personally if a rookie starts lighting them up. Sanders is going to see disguised coverages, delayed blitzes, and edge-contained design take away his rollout lanes. It's the perfect test, because it forces him to prove that the precision he showed in camp isn't just a byproduct of familiarity with his own defense. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The ripple effect of a strong game from Sanders won't just stay in Cleveland. Around the league, teams are always watching. Quarterbacks are the most valuable commodity in the sport, and when one starts flashing high-level traits, every GM in need of a future starter takes note. If Sanders delivers in this game, the Browns' leverage changes instantly. He's not just their rookie. He becomes a player other teams would gladly pay to acquire. That could make the Browns think twice about playing the long development game, because the last thing they want is to lose control of the narrative by dangling him too long. And that's the other unspoken factor, optics. Let's not forget, Jimmy Haslam publicly distanced himself from the decision to draft Sanders. That's not a small thing. It created the impression that Sanders was GM Andrew Berry's pet project, not an organizational consensus pick. Now that Sanders has essentially forced his way into the starting job through performance, Haslam has a choice. Double down on his skepticism or pivot and publicly back the player who just energized a team. If Sanders starts winning games, that pivot will happen fast. And you can bet the owner will start saying things like, "I always believed in the kid," as if those earlier quotes didn't exist. The point is, this isn't just a quarterback battle anymore. It's a culture battle. It's a collision between the NFL's entrenched, pay your dues philosophy and the simple truth that football doesn't care how long you've been around. It cares if you can win on Sunday. Sanders is forcing the Browns to choose merit over hierarchy. And if he keeps delivering, that choice could redefine not just his career, but how the franchise evaluates and elevates talent going forward. For the players who've been around long enough to see promising guys get buried by politics, this is refreshing. For the fans who've endured endless cycles of maybe next year quarterback experiments, it's a shot of hope. And for Sanders himself, it's a chance to flip his narrative entirely. From the overlooked rookie with a famous last name to the quarterback who changed Cleveland's trajectory before he'd even played a regular season snap. The wait is over. The stage is set. Now it's about proving that day 12 wasn't the peak. It was a start. And if Sanders handles a moment the way he's handled every challenge so far, a lot more than the Panthers are going to be in for a surprise. The day after that perfect 14 for 14, the vibe in Berea didn't just feel different. It was different. Reporters who had been lingering in the corner of the indoor facility with their notepads now had a new story. One that didn't feel like another tired chapter in the Browns' quarterback carousel. The beat writers who had spent months covering depth chart debates suddenly found themselves leaning into the Sanders era angle. Even the national media, who often treat Cleveland as a punchline, started poking around to see if this was real or just another August mirage. For the first time in years, there was a genuine buzz, not the kind that comes from a flashy free agent signing or a draft day gamble, but the kind that builds when a player forces his way into the spotlight through undeniable performance. Sanders hadn't been handed anything. He hadn't been marketed as the future in glossy promos. He had clawed his way from buried on the depth chart to commanding the first-team huddle, and every player in that building knew it. Walking out to practice that morning, the sideline banner was telling. Receivers were lining up to get extra reps with him. Linemen were joking about how much easier it was when the ball's gone before the D-line can even sniff us. And the defense? They were finally talking about him as a challenge instead of a rookie to be disguised against. That's respect. And in the NFL, respect earned in practice often translates to belief on game day. Meanwhile, Gabriel's body language told its own story. The frustration from day 12 had carried over. He wasn't sulking exactly, but his throws lacked the conviction they'd had early in camp. Every incompletion seemed to weigh on him, and the competition that had once been framed as wide open was now clearly tilting. Coaches still barked encouragement, but everyone could see the shift. The guy who had been positioned as a safe option was suddenly the one scrambling for footing. Stefanski's coaching staff, to their credit, didn't waste time adapting. Play scripts for the coming week were quietly adjusted. Instead of leaning on conservative passing concepts that had dominated previous practices, they began sprinkling in more of the layered designs that take advantage of Sanders' processing speed. Rollouts with double-breaking routes. RPOs that gave him quick-release options if the front seven overcommit. Even a few deep shot looks that had been mostly shelled for fear of turnovers. What made all of this so striking was that Sanders wasn't treating it like some coronation. If anything, he got quieter. Less chest thumping, more eye contact in the huddle, less joking between reps, more quick chats with position coaches. It wasn't nerves, it was focus. Almost like he understood that the jump from promising rookie to starting quarterback isn't about proving you can do it, but proving you can do it every single day. That focus bled into the locker room dynamics too. When a quarterback starts elevating his game, it tends to have one of two effects. Either it creates tension with veterans who feel their roles slipping, or it galvanizes the entire unit. Sanders was clearly in the second category. His work ethic had been consistent from the moment he arrived. So when the breakout day came, it didn't feel like a fluke. It felt like the natural result of everything they'd been watching him build. And this is where Cleveland's history actually works in his favor. This is a franchise star for stability at quarterback. Decades of stopgaps, false dawns, and emergency replacements have trained fans and players alike to recognize something different when they see it. Sanders' game has that different quality, not just because he's accurate or mobile, but because he's unshakable. Whether it's a 70-yard bomb in stride or a check down to avoid a sack, the energy stays the same. That kind of emotional control is rare, especially in someone who, just weeks ago, was taking scout team snaps. But here's where it gets tricky. As much as the team seems to be rallying around him, the politics upstairs haven't magically disappeared. Jimmy Haslam's earlier comments about Sanders being a project aren't going to vanish from memory overnight. For an owner who likes to be seen as hands-on, admitting that the rookie he didn't want is now the team's best option might sting. That's why, behind closed doors. This Panthers game isn't just about Sanders proving he can run the offense. It's about making it impossible for anyone to justify taking the job away from him later. You can already imagine the scenarios being whispered about. If Sanders plays well, there will be pressure to name him the regular season starter. If he plays well and wins, the calls will be deafening. But if he stumbles even slightly, there are those in the building who will pounce on it as proof that they should slow play his development. That's the razor's edge he's walking, and the one that makes this preseason appearance feel like a playoff game in disguise. The tension isn't just internal either. Word travels fast in the NFL. Other teams, especially those with shaky quarterback situations, will be watching closely. A clean, composed performance could instantly make Sanders a name in trade rumors if the Browns don't commit to him. That kind of external leverage can either speed up Cleveland's decision-making or muddy it further. And then there's the human side of it. Sanders knows the chatter. He's heard the digs about being Deion's son. He's read the takes dismissing his college success as a product of system football. He's aware that his draft position is still being used as a weapon against him in debates. Stepping onto that field against Carolina isn't just about the scoreboard. It's about every critic, every snub, every meeting where his name was skipped over for another guy. That's why the locker room feels so alive right now. They know how much is riding on this moment for him. And by extension, for them, if Sanders delivers, they're not just winning a quarterback. They're gaining a leader they can believe in without reservation. And that's the kind of shift that can carry a team deep into the season, even through the inevitable bumps and bruises. The funny thing? Even with all this noise swirling, Sanders seems to be treating it like just another day of football. No over-the-top hype speeches, no media theatrics, just preparation. Meetings, film, representatives, that's what separates the real ones from the flashes in the pan. The understanding that hype is useless without substance. When he jogs out for that first series against the Panthers, the crowd will roar. Some will cheer because they believe. Others will cheer because they're curious. And a few will cheer because they want to see him prove them wrong. But no matter the motive, all eyes will be on him. And if he plays the way he's practiced, if the poise, the timing, and the accuracy translate under the lights, the Browns might just find themselves in the middle of a quarterback story they haven't had in decades, one worth believing in.